My mother's ring hit me in the face, and my blood splattered on the floor. She laughed. "You ungrateful bastard," and then went back to demanding money for my sister. My daughter's scream of horror pierced my soul as my father pinned me against the wall. In that moment, 30 years of abuse resurfaced. They had no idea what I had been doing in secret 3 months earlier. Power had shifted without warning. The sharp sting of metal against my cheek was followed by a warm trickle of blood sliding down to my chin. My mother's wedding ring had split the skin open. My daughter screamed from the corner, her tiny voice shaking the walls of that cursed house. "You ungrateful bastard!" My mother spat, her face twisted with fury. She turned away from me as though nothing had happened and went back to yelling about money for my sister. Behind me, my father's heavy hand gripped my shoulder, shoving me against the wall. His face was flushed with anger, his eyes wild. "Don't you dare talk back to your mother. She gave you life. You owe her everything. Now hand over the money. Your sister's future depends on it." 30 years. 30 years of this same madness, beatings, insults, demands. I had lived my whole life as their scapegoat, the punching bag for every frustration. My sister, their perfect angel, could do no wrong. She was the jewel of the family, and I was the shadow cast at her feet. But this time, something inside me snapped. Not because of the pain, not because of their cruelty, but because my daughter, my sweet, innocent Emily, had seen it. She had seen me crushed, humiliated, bleeding. She had seen the same cycle of abuse that had destroyed my childhood, trying to seep into hers. I couldn't let that happen. I pressed a hand to my bleeding cheek and looked at my mother, who was rifling through my bag as if it already belonged to her. I looked at my father, who pressed harder against my chest, daring me to fight back. And I remembered every slap, every insult, every night I went to bed hungry because they forgot to feed me. And I also remembered the decision I had made 3 months ago. They had no idea what I had been doing in secret. "Stop!" Emily cried, running to me, her little hands pushing against my father's massive arm. "Leave my daddy alone!" For the first time in his life, my father flinched at a child's words. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was shame, or maybe he just wasn't used to someone standing up to him. I slowly pried his arm off me, surprising him with my strength. He didn't know I had been training for this moment, in more ways than one. I pulled Emily close and said in a steady voice, "We're leaving now." My mother scoffed. "Leaving? You don't get to leave. You'll crawl back like you always do. Without us, you're nothing." I met her eyes, and for the first time in 30 years, I didn't see a towering monster. I saw a bitter, twisted woman who thrived on control, and she was about to lose it. "No," I said quietly. "Without me, you're nothing." Her face twisted in confusion, but I didn't wait to explain. I walked out with Emily, the blood still drying on my face. My father didn't stop me. My mother's voice followed me down the hallway, screaming curses that no child should ever hear. But deep inside, I felt the shift. They didn't know. They didn't know about the documents I had gathered, the hidden recordings, the bank transfers traced to their accounts, the abuse reports I had quietly filed, the lawyer I had met in secret. For 30 years, I had been powerless. But 3 months ago, I started preparing for the day I would end it all. And that day had come. 2 weeks passed. Silence from my parents. Not even a phone call. They probably thought I was too broken to fight back, too scared to do anything. That's what they had trained me to believe my whole life. But they underestimated me. When the knock came on my door, Emily was coloring on the kitchen table. I opened it to find my father standing there, looking more tired than I had ever seen him. "Son," he said gruffly, "we need to talk." Behind him, my mother hovered like a vulture, her eyes darting nervously. For the first time in my life, she wasn't smirking. She looked scared. I let them in, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted Emily to see something important, that monsters could bleed too. They sat on the couch, my father wringing his hands, my mother avoiding my gaze. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. My mother cleared her throat. "The police came to the house. They're saying things, accusing us of fraud, of abuse. Where would they get such lies?" I smiled coldly. Lies. I gave them everything. Bank records, recordings of the things you said to me, medical reports of the injuries you caused, 30 years of proof. And now, the world knows what kind of parents you really are. Her face went pale. My father's fist clenched. "You'd betray your own blood." I leaned forward, my voice low. "You betrayed me the moment you decided your daughter deserved everything, and I deserved nothing. You betrayed me every time you made me bleed. And now you're reaping what you sowed." My mother's voice shook. "We'll lose everything." "Yes," I said simply. "You will." Just then, Emily walked into the room, holding her, drawing, "Daddy, look, it's us. You and me in our new house." She smiled brightly, oblivious to the storm brewing in the room. My father's face softened for a moment, maybe realizing the kind of love he had never given me. My mother, though, broke down in tears. "We're your family," she whispered. "We need you." I stood up, towering over them now in a way I had never done before. "You're not my family. Emily is my family, and you will never hurt her the way you hurt me." They stared at me, shocked by my defiance. But they weren't ready for what came next. A knock came again at the door. This time it was 2 officers. They stepped inside, papers in hand. "Mr. Turner," one of them said to me, "as agreed, we've issued the restraining orders. They cannot come within 500 feet of you or your daughter. And the court date for the fraud and abuse charges is set for next month." My parents froze. My mother gasped. My father's jaw clenched. You did this." My father growled. "No," I said calmly. "You did this to yourselves. I just gave the truth a voice." As the officers escorted them out, my mother's desperate voice echoed in the hallway. "You'll regret this. We're still your parents." I closed the door and locked it behind them. Emily looked up at me with wide eyes. "Daddy, are you okay?" I knelt down, pulling her into my arms. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. For the first time in my life, I'm free." That night, as Emily slept peacefully in her room, I sat alone in the living room. For 30 years, they had made me feel worthless, but now, they were the ones stripped of power, their lies exposed, their empire crumbling, and it was all because I finally chose myself. The abuse had defined my past, but it would never define my daughter's future. And in that truth, I found not just justice, I found victory.